Coventry, the home of Britain's automobile industry. Below us, as we look down, the remains of the main aisle of the cathedral, which was so grievously damaged in the Second World War. There are many chapels in the cathedral, and this is the Chapel of Industry. The Verger's house, with an exterior staircase complete with roof, and the town hall. Here in the council chamber, we witness a ceremony which has been performed for 600 years. At this ceremony, the Lord Mayor confirms young men as freemen of the city. All young men and women who complete within the city boundary an indentured service to a trade can claim this honor. The record of each is carefully examined, and incidentally, the two we've seen go before the Lord Mayor were apprentices of the Roots Group. St. Mary's Hall, in which this ceremony was previously held. This is the Technical College, which is one of the finest in the country. We can't talk of Coventry without mentioning Lady Godiva, who lived in the 11th century and is remembered for her famous ride through the city. New buildings, some in course of erection, replacing those destroyed during the war. And now on to Ryton, on the outskirts of the city. To one of the Roots Group factories, where car assembly on a vast scale is carried out. Here, engines are being loaded onto a conveyor. This is the body conveyor taking the body to the main conveyor. At the main conveyor, the mechanical parts are applied to the body. And so to the completed cars coming off the line. Headlights are checked and focused. Roller tests carried out for engines and brakes, and electrical equipment checked. The whole shop. See how the conveyor lines for each model run up parallel to the finishing points. And so to the completed cars in the dispatch park awaiting dispatch. This factory also houses the KD packing departments. Girls pre-pack parts for the various cases. The cases are made on the spot, and the parts packed into the cases. Much thought is given, of course, to reducing the size of the pack to a minimum. The destination of each crate is stenciled in prior to dispatch. And this shows for all to see how we cover the world. And now, in collaboration with the Pressed Steel Company Limited of Oxford, we present to you the Husky. This is the completely finished car, which has been introduced to combine private and commercial purposes in one car. It has normal Minx front doors, fascia and wings, and with hinged bucket seats in front. At the rear, the van-type door, which can only be opened from the front, discloses a rear cushion and squab, which can be adjusted by hinging the cushion upward and forward, and the squab forward and downward, to give a clean, level floor space, which can be used for small goods delivery, etc. The wheelbase is shorter than Minx, and the saloon rear doors have been replaced by a new side panel incorporating a rear quarter light. The rear of the roof is modified to provide for the rear door. Excepting for minor differences, the construction forward of the B-post is identical to Minx. For KD purposes, the breakdown follows the normal Minx method. In fact, many of the items are identical, and some of the existing Minx tools can be used or modified. We now show you assembly work, which is definitely different to Minx. In the underframe fixture, we first locate and position the front cross member, the side members, spare wheel floor with Welding Sealastic dust sealer applied. All of these are dispatched to you ready for assembly in the jig. Now bolt in position the center cross member, again as Minx. Also locate the gauge bar in position. And now the Minx outrigger brackets, which you previously sub-assembled. Now spot weld the outriggers to the top and bottom flanges of the side members. Also the front cross member to the side members. Now clamp up and spot weld in position the plate closing side member front. And now the angle front cross member is located by hand and spot welded in position. The spare wheel floor is now welded to the upper flange of the side members and the web of the side members at the rear. Now locate and position the plate distance tube steering box. Weld to the top and bottom flanges of the side members. This is the plate reinforcement shock absorber being located in position and spot welded. And here is the heel board with Sealastic dust sealer applied, being located and clamped in position. This is the spare wheel stop brake, which you will locate and weld in position as you do on Minx, prior to offering the spare wheel floor in position. We now locate the main floor assembly, which you will make up similar to Minx with clinch nuts, washers, wiring clips, etc. The heel board is now welded to the floor. Note that this operation could be done out of the jig if preferred. The width of the floor is very important, and it is best for it to be narrow rather than wide, and a simple checking template should be made so that if necessary the floor can be adjusted by bending inward, as you see here. Continue with welding the main floor to the side members and outriggers. Now locate the rear seat pan with Sealastic dust sealer applied and spot weld the rear flanges and then the front and side flanges. Again, the location of the rear seat pan to the spare wheel floor is important. There's a tendency for the panel to slip forward. This should be prevented by welding at the rear first, so that subsequently a snug fit is obtained with the wheel arch inner. The frame is now taken out of the fixture and placed on pipe rails for further operation. On the pipe rails, complete the welding of the floor to the side members and locate the two missing nut retainers and weld in position on the spare wheel floor. Now reverse the frame. Locate, with the special fixture clamped in position, the fixing clips master cylinder and weld in position. Now place in position and clamp up the closing plate side member and continue spot welding to the floor and flanges of the bracket front mounting support. Using the special jig, locate in position the bracket support handbrake and the bracket abutment handbrake, place in position and spot weld. This is the check strap tapping plate, which is located in position with special screws and spot welding. Now finish the welding of the side closing plate. Removing bolts from the center cross member, now weld the bracket front mounting to the floor and then replace the cross member and bolt up. We now weld the handbrake abutment bracket and the outriggers to the side members. The arc and gas welding indicated here is practically identical to Minx. In fact, the majority of the operations on the pipe rails are the same as Minx, including the reaming of the rear spring fixing holes and the holes in the center cross member. The underframe is now taken back to the fixture and clamped in position. This is the reinforcement rear pillar and gusset assembly, which you receive ready for assembly in the jig and is now located and clamped up. Spot weld the pillar to the inside face of the underframe and the gusset to the top of the underframe. Now place in position the inner wheel arch and clamp up. Spot weld the inner wheel arch to the side frame upper and lower flanges and to the seat pan sides and front, and also weld along the bottom of the wheel arch. This assembly is slightly different to Minx, and we're now showing you our method of assembly on production jigs. These are the rear lamp protection panels, being located and clamped in position. Next, locate the floor, to which 2 tapping blocks have already been welded. Locate the front and rear stiffeners with clamps and screw down. Now tack weld in turn the lamp protection panels, the rear and the front stiffeners, and take out a fixture. Here we are finishing the spot welding on a pedestal welder. This assembly could be made up by you with local clamps, as the items are more or less self-locating. Now back to the main underframe fixture and locate the luggage floor and weld in position to the seat pan. The rear pillar is now gas welded to the luggage floor, so also is the squab side support to the seat pan. This is the panel body lower rear with elastic dust sealer applied, located with clamps, locked home in position, and the clamps pinned. Now spot weld in position at each end and tack weld along the bottom. Now spot weld the flanges of the rear lamp protection panels to the rear pillars and the rear of the inner wheel arch to the side members and the gussets to the body lower rear. Now take the assembled underframe out of the fixture and finish welding on pipe rails. Back again into the fixture and locate the outer wheel arch panel with clamps and weld. This is the Era and Benelux type underframe. Note that the rear pillars, body lower rear and luggage floor to side panel are omitted, leaving only the gussets in position. This is the Era type frame located in the Era body less doors fixture. First, the rear pillars located in position and spot welded. Next, locate with clamps the panel lower rear, similar to the previous operation shown, and weld in position. Finally, locate and clamp in position the panel luggage floor to side panel and weld. Here we have the aperture panel clamped into position in the jig. Elastic dust sealer is being applied to the flanges. The valance is identical to Minx, and you will prepare it for this jig as for Minx. The valance is now located and spot welded into position. Your Minx side panel and valance jig can be adapted for this operation. This is the side drip molding and listing rail bracket assembly, which you receive sub-assembled and is located in the jig. Now, place the side panel in the jig and clamp up. Spot weld the drip molding to the side panel. Release the clamps and place the quarter light reinforcement into position and locate with clamps. spot weld all round the reinforcement. Next, the lamp attachment holder is located with a special screw jig and fixed in position. Weld 2 spots. Unscrew the jig and complete welding. Locate by hand the lower filler and weld. Now release clamps and ease the panel out of the jig and complete the welding. We use a dab of welding sealer to hold these wiring clips in position for spot welding. Lastly, using peg clamps and a gauge, the trim rail is located and spot welded into position. Although you've seen here the assembly made up on production jigs, the items are really self-locating and could be readily assembled using peg clamps, etc. The assembly is now ready for the body less doors jig. This shows the underframe being placed into position in the body less doors fixture and clamped up. Locate and clamp the channel stiffener in position and spot weld. Welding prime and elastic dust sealer have been applied to the flanges of the side members, and we now locate into position the aperture panel and valance assembly. Weld the aperture panel to the wheel arches and to the floor forward of the wheel arches. This is the dash pan, which, excepting for these heater supports, is identical to Minx and will be assembled by you as Minx, including welding prime. Now place into position between the valances. Body side panels treated with elastic dust sealer are now brought to the jig, located and clamped into position. This is the rear drip molding and retainer seal assembly, which is sent to you assembled and is now located and clamped into position. Now tack weld the side panels to the rear pillars and weld the rear drip molding to the side panels. Gas weld the drip molding at the front and rear. Here we have the roof panel, which you will assemble as minks. In fact, the header reinforcement and the roof lamp bracket are identical to minks. This is located in position and clamped. See that the edges of the roof are a reasonably snug fit to the drip molding all round. Now, take up the front beam on a hoist and lower into position and clamp home. This is the same operation as on minks. Now, tack weld in turn the valance to the underframe, the aperture panel to the floor and sill, the aperture panel and body side and floor at the bottom of the B-post, dash to the roof panel and valance, the roof to the rear drip molding, continuing along the side panels, and the aperture panel, in that order. Tack weld side panels to the wheel arch outer. Note, we use a copper spoon for face welding. Gas weld the roof to the dash panel. Now remove from the jig, taking care not to damage the side panels on the jig, and place on pipe rails or trestles and finish welding as required. Now place the body back into the fixture. This is the reinforcement bonnet lock, located and welded as on minks. Locate in the fixture the front fender assembly with welding prime applied. Clamp up. Tack weld into position. Also at this point locate and weld the panel fairing grill and the bonnet stay. Exactly the same as for minks. The body is now taken out of the jig, placed on pipe rails, and the welding completed. Locate and fix with clamps the cant rail and B-post finishers and weld into position. This is the fascia panel, similar to Minx. Locate with clamps and weld into position. Now complete the welding of the finisher panels. This is the retainer trim pad rear quarter, which is located and clamped in position. Now spot weld as required. Also locate the plate support rear door operating lever and weld in position. Lastly, set the drip molding in the A-post, pierce drain holes in the drip molding over the rear door. All of the welding guns we've used are the same as you already have in use on Minx. And so to the final stages on conveyor pipe rails or truck. Assemble the rear door hinges to the body. This is the rear door assembly which you receive ready to fix to the hinges and set in the normal manner. And here is the finished body shell ready for painting. We've not shown you the assembly of the bonnet, the front doors, or the check arms, since these operations are the same as you're doing for Minx. So also are the normal straightening, door and bonnet setting operations. The bonnet with its hinges and prop are identical to Minx. The front fender is identical, excepting that the exterior molding holes are omitted as they're not required. The front door is identical, excepting that again exterior molding holes have been omitted. Also, on the inside panel there's a trim pad retainer strip welded in position. The rear door check arm is spring-loaded. Although we show here the squab panel screwed into position, it is of course one of the items applied at trim after trimming. In conclusion, we hope that what we've shown you will help you to solve production problems at the body in white stage of the Husky.